Chapter 16. And the lot for the children of Joseph went out from the Jordan by Jericho, to the waters of Jericho on the east, to the wilderness going up from Jericho through the mountains to Bethel. And went out from Bethel to Luz, and passed over to the border of the Archites at Altaroth, and went down westward to the boundary of the Yephiltites, as far as the boundary of Lower Beth Coron to Gezer, and it ended at the sea. Thus the children of Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim inherited. And the border of the children of Ephraim, according to their clans, was: the border of their inheritance on the east side was Ataroth Adar, as far as Upper Beth Coron. And the border went out toward the sea to Mikmethoth on the north, and then the border went around eastward to Tanath Shiloh, and passed over it on the east of Yanoka, and went down from Yanoka to Altaroth, and Naarah reached to Jericho, and came out at the Jordan. From Tappuah the border went westward to the Wadi Kana, and it ended at the sea. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Ephraim for their clans. And the separate cities for the children of Ephraim were in the midst of the inheritance of the children of Manasseh, all the cities with their villages. And they did not drive out the Canaanites who dwelt in Gezer, so the Canaanites dwelt among the Ephraimites to this day, and have become compulsory labor. Chapter 17. And the lot for the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph, was: for Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, father of Gilead, because he was a man of battle, therefore he had Gilead and Bashan. And for the rest of the children of Manasseh, for their clans, there was: for the children of Abiezer, and for the children of Kelek, and for the children of Azriel, and for the children of Shechem, and for the children of Kepher, and for the children of Shemitah. These were the male children of Manasseh, son of Joseph, according to their clans. But Sephothad, the son of Hephner, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, had no sons, but only daughters. And these were the names of his daughters: Maklah, and Noah, and Koglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they came near before Eleazar the priest, before Yehoshua son of Nun, and before the rulers, saying, Yehoshua commanded Moshe to give us an inheritance among our brothers. So he gave them an inheritance among their father's brothers, according to the mouth of Yehoshua. And 10 portions fell in Manasseh, besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which were beyond the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance among his sons. And the rest of Manasseh's sons had the land of Gilead. And the border of Manasseh was from Asher to Mikmethoth, which faces Shechem. And the border went up to the right to the inheritance of En Tappuah. The land of Tappuah belonged to Manasseh, but Tappuah on the border of Manasseh belonged to the children of Ephraim. And the border went down to the Wadi Kana, southward to the Wadi. These cities of Ephraim were in the midst of the cities of Manasseh, but the border of Manasseh was north of the Wadi, and it ended at the sea. Southward it was Ephraim's, and northward it was Manasseh's. And the sea was its border, and they reached to Asher on the north, and to Issachar on the east. And in Issachar and in Asher, Manasseh had Beth Shean and its towns, and Yiblaam and its towns, and the inhabitants of Dor and its towns, and the inhabitants of Endor and its towns, and the inhabitants of Tanakh and its towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and its towns, 3 of the heights. But the children of Manasseh were unable to drive out the inhabitants of those cities, for the Canaanites desired to dwell in that land. And it came to be, when the children of Israel grew strong, that they put the Canaanites to compulsory labor, but did not utterly drive them out. And the children of Joseph spoke to Yehoshua, saying, Why have you given us but one lot and one portion to inherit, seeing as we are a great people, whom Yehoshua has blessed until now? And Yehoshua said to them, If you are a great people, go up to the forest and clear a place for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaites, since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you. Then the children of Joseph said, The hill country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron, both those who are of Beth Shean and its towns, and those who are of the valley of Israel. And Yehoshua spoke to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and to Manasseh, saying, You are a great people and have great power. You are not to have one lot, for the hill country shall be yours. For though it is a forest, you shall cut it down, and its farthest limits shall be yours. For you are to drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots and are strong. Chapter 18. And all the congregation of the children of Israel assembled at Shiloh, and they let the tent of appointment dwell there, and the land was subdued before them. And 7 tribes were left among the children of Israel who had not yet shared their inheritance. So Yehoshua said to the children of Israel, Till when you are going to fail to go in and possess the land which Yehoshua Elohim your father has given you. Appoint 3 men from each tribe, and let me send them out to go through the land and describe it according to their inheritance, and come back to me. And they shall divide it into 7 portions. Yehudah stays within their border on the south, and the house of Yosef stays within their border on the north. And you shall describe the land in 7 portions, and shall bring it to me. Then I shall cast lots for you before Yehoshua Elohim. But the Levites have no portion among you, for the priesthood of Yehoshua is their inheritance. And Gad and Reuben and the half-tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance beyond the Jordan on the east, which Moshe the servant of Yehoshua gave them. So the men rose up and went. And Yehoshua commanded those who went to describe the land, saying, Go, walk through the land, describe it, and come back to me, and let me cast lots for you here before Yehoshua in Shiloh. So the men went and passed through the land, and described it in a book in 7 portions by cities. And they came to Yehoshua at the camp in Shiloh. And Yehoshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before Yehoshua, and there Yehoshua divided the land to the children of Israel according to their portions. And the lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up for their clans, and the border of their lot came up between the children of Yehudah and the children of Yosef. And their border was on the north side from the Jordan, and the border went up to the side of Jericho on the north, and went up through the mountains westward, and ended at the wilderness of Beth Awen. And the border went over from there toward Luz, to the side of Luz, that is Bethel, southward. And the border went down to Atroth Adar, by the hill that lies on the south side of lower Beth Qoran. And the border was drawn and went around the west side to the south, from the hill that faces Beth Qoran southward, and it ended at Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Yearim, a city of the children of Yehudah. This was the west side. And the south side was from the end of Kiriath Yearim, and the border went out westward, and went out to the fountain of the waters of Nephtoah. And the border came down to the end of the mountain that faces the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is in the valley of the Rephaim on the north, and went down to the valley of Hinnom, to the side of the Jebusite city on the south, and went down to En Rogel. And it was drawn from the north, went out to En Shemesh, and went out toward Gelioth, which is the opposite of the ascent of Adumim, and went down to the stone of Bohan, son of Reuben, and passed over to the side opposite Arabah northward, and went down to Arabah. And the border passed over to the side of Beth Hoglah northward, and the border ended at the north bay at the Salt Sea, at the south end of the Jordan. This was the southern boundary. And the Jordan borders it on the east side. This was the inheritance of the children of Benjamin according to its boundaries all around for their clans. And the cities for the tribe of the children of Benjamin for their clans were Jericho, and Beth Hoglah, and Amek Ketzites, and Beth Arabah, and Semarim, and Bethel, and Avim, and Para, and Orphra, and Kephar Ha'amoni, and Ophni, and Gaba, 12 cities with their villages, Gabon, and Ramah, and Berioth, and Mitzpeh, and Kephirah, and Motzah, and Rechem, and Yirpael, and Haralah, and Selah, Eleph, and the Jebusite, that is Jerusalem, Gibath, and Kiriath, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Benjamin for their clans. Chapter 19. And the second lot came out for Shimon, for the tribe of the children of Shimon for their clans. And their inheritance was within the inheritance of the children of Yehudah. And they had in their inheritance Beersheba or Sheba, and Moladah, and Katsar Shula, and Bala, and Etzem, and El Talad, and Bethul, and Korma, and Siklag, and Beth Markoboth, and Katsar Susa, and Beth Lebaoth, and Sharuken, 13 cities and their villages, Ayin, Ramon, and Ether, and Ashan, 4 cities and their villages, and all the villages that were all around these cities, as far as Baalath Beir, Ramath Negeb. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Shimon for their clans. The inheritance of the children of Shimon was out of the portion of the children of Yehuda, for the portion of the children of Yehuda was too much for them. So the children of Shimon had their inheritance within their inheritance. And the third lot came up for the children of Zebulun for their clans, and the border of their inheritance was as far as Sarid, and their border went toward the sea, and Maralah, and reached to Debesheth, and reached to the wadi that faced Yokneam, and turned back from Sarid eastward toward the sunrise, to the border of Kisloth Tabor. It went out toward Deberath, and went up to Yephiyah. And there it passed over eastward to the east of Gath Hefer toward Eth Katsin, and went out to Ramon, which borders on Neah. And the border went around it on the north side of Hanathon, and it ended in the valley of Yephithah El. Also Akata and Nahalal, and Shimron, and Yedala, and Bethlehem, 12 cities and their villages. This was the inheritance of the children of Zebulun for their clans, these cities with their villages. The fourth lot came out to Issachar, for the children of Issachar for their clans, and their border was toward Yisrael, and Kesuloth, and Shunem, and Hepharayim, and Chion, and Anakarath, and Rabith, and Kishon, and Ebetz, and Rameth, and En-Ganim, and En-Hadah, and Beth Patsetz. And the border reached to Tabor, and Shahatsima, and Beth Shemesh, and their border ended at the Jordan, 16 cities and with their villages. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Issachar for their clans, the cities and their villages. And the fifth lot came out for the tribe of the children of Asher for their clans, and their border was Kelkath, and Kali, and Beten, and Akshath, and Alamelech, and Amad, and Mishal. And it reached to Mount Carmel westward, and to Brook Shakor Libnath, and turned toward the sunrise to Beth Dagon, and reached to Zebulun, and to the valley of Yephthah El, then northward beyond Beth Emek and Nahiel, and went out to Kabul, which was on the left, and Kebron and Rehob, and Haman, and Cana, as far as Great Sidon. And the border turned to Ramah, and to the strong city Sor, and the border turned to Hosa, and ended at the sea from the coast of Akzib. And Umah, and Aphek, and Rehob were included, 22 cities with their villages. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Asher for their clans, these cities with their villages. The sixth lot came out to the children of Naphtali, for the children of Naphtali for their clans. And their border was from Heleth, from the terebinth tree, and Ananim, and Adami Nekeb, and Yabneel, as far as Lakum, and it ended at the Jordan. And the border turned westward to Aznoth Tabor, and went out from there toward Hukok. It reached to Zebulun on the south side, and Asher on the west side, and ended at Yehuda by the Jordan toward their sunrise. And the city's defense were Siddim, Ser, and Hamath, Rakath, and Kinnereth, and Adama, and Ramah, and Katsor, and Kadesh, and Edrei, and En-Katsor, and Yeron, and Migdal-El, Kurem, and Beth Anath, and Beth Shemesh, 19 cities with their villages. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Naphtali for their clans, the cities with their villages. The seventh lot came out for the tribe of the children of Dan for their clans. And the border of their inheritance was Zorah, and Eshtaol, and Ir-Shemesh, and Sha'alabim, and Ayalon, and Yithla, and Elon, and Timnathah, and Ekron, and Eltekeh, and Gibbethon, and Baalath, and Yehud, and Bnei Barak, and Gath Ramon, and Me'arkan, and Radkan, with the border before Yapho. And the border of the children of Dan went out from them, and the children of Dan went up to fight against Lashem, and captured it. And they struck it with the edge of the sword, and possessed it, and dwelt in it, and called it Lashem, Dan, after the name of Dan their father. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Dan for their clans, these cities with their villages. And when they had ended dividing the land as an inheritance according to their borders, the children of Israel gave an inheritance to Yehoshua son of Nun in their midst. According to the mouth of Yahuwah, they gave him the city which he asked for, Timnath Serach, in the mountains of Ephraim, and he built a city and dwelt in it. These were the inheritances with which Eleazar the priest and Yehoshua son of Nun and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel divided as an inheritance by lot in Shiloh before Yahuwah, at the door of the tent of appointment, and they ended dividing the country. Chapter 20. And Yahuwah spoke to Yehoshua, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Appoint for yourselves cities of refuge, which I spoke to you through Moshe, for the manslayer who strikes any being mistakenly, unknowingly, to flee there, and he shall be your refuge from the revenger of blood. And he shall flee to one of those cities, and shall stand at the entrance of the gate of the city, and declare his case in the hearing of the elders of that city. And they shall take him into the city as one of them, and give him a place, and he shall dwell among them. When the revenger of blood pursues him, they do not give the manslayer into his hand, because he struck his neighbor unknowingly, and did not hate him beforehand. And he shall dwell in that city until he stands before the congregation for right ruling, and until the death of the one who is high priest in those days. Then let the manslayer return and come to his own city and his own house, to the city from which he fled. So they set apart Kadesh in Galil, in the mountains of Naphtali, and Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Kivron, in the mountains of Yehudah. And beyond the Jordan, by Jericho eastward, they appointed Betzer in the wilderness of the plain, from the tribe of Reuben, and Ramoth and Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan and Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. These were the cities appointed for all the children of Israel, and for the stranger who sojourned in their midst, for anyone striking any being unknowingly to flee there, and not die by the hand of the revenger of blood until he stood before the congregation.